Hello and welcome back to another episode of El Pozo, the Primera RFEF show. I'm your host, Nick Bell, this evening, and I'm delighted to be reunited with Liam Bambridge, back fresh from the Basque Country. How are you doing, Liam?
Yeah, very good, thank you. Had a brilliant weekend. Saw some excellent football. I actually watched 4 games in just over 24 hours.
That's the way to do it, isn't it? Like you say, just take it all in whilst you're there, which is quite a good thing. I'm looking at a mad. Can I go to Spain and back in less than 24 hours to watch a Malaga game in November? I'm tempted, Liam. I'm tempted.
The answer is yes, Nick. I've done it many times. Do it.
Well, there we go. That's a green light. Can you tell that to my wife as well, if that's okay? £66 from Leeds isn't too bad, is it? So, yeah, I've worked it out that I could leave this house at 10 o'clock and I could be back by 10 o'clock on a Sunday. It feels like a challenge as well, which is maybe quite a cool thing. But less about that, more about third-tier Spanish football, which is what we're here to talk about. Some good news to begin with, Liam. The Juventud de Torremolinos players have finally been paid.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what to make of this because I look back through some of the other stories about this, and there was talk about a takeover. We said quite clearly last week, didn't we, that they weren't interested in selling up the current owners, but there does appear to have been some investment after the players came out and complained about not getting paid. There's a suggestion. I mean, it's mainly through Angel Garcia, again, who's an excellent source when it comes to these things. He seems to be suggesting that there has been some money put into the club, and now that the players are now up to date in terms of their wages, and not before time. It's been dragging on for far too long, hasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's 2 layers that you can look at. First of all, obviously, the fact they have been paid. These are, as you've expressed many times, players that aren't earning, thousands of pounds or thousands of euros a week. They're on, quite, general wages, so to speak. I know we've had a little bit of insight on the kind of money that you can get paid at this level before. So it's good that they've got a bit more security that way. But I suppose the rumblings on in the background, maybe with this uncertainty around whether there will be a new owner of Torremolinos, because again, these little side tracks, these off-pitch issues, do often find themselves creeping onto the pitch sometimes, don't they, Liam? And we really don't want Torremolinos to be distracted by something that could throw their season off kilter.
Yeah, they've done really well to kind of put it to one side, haven't they? The performance on the pitch have been excellent. Let's not forget this is their first season at this level. But I suppose if they have not been paid to the end of October, one hopes that that's the case, or at least the end of September. You just hope that they're not faced with the same situation in early December. We haven't been paid for October. We haven't been paid for November. Let's hope this is finally been sorted out properly, and they've now got a regular source of income coming into the club that will cover the wages of the players. Because, as you say, they aren't players who are they won't have built up a huge fortune already from playing football, and so if they're not getting paid, then they're suddenly things like mortgages and other important expenses in life that tend to be fairly fundamental to your existence can't be paid, can they? Let's move on to a happier topic. We try and get some happy news in, don't we? I suppose a new head coach is not necessarily great news for the outgoing head coach, so it's a cloud with a silver lining, I suppose. Claudio Barragan at Eldense has been put in charge after Javi Cabello was shown the door. I mean, the question, I suppose, here, Nick, is it a temporary thing? He's been promoted from the B team. He has got a lot of experience as a head coach. He's been at Elche, Ponferradina, Cádiz, Mirandés. He's got quite a long track record of clubs that he's coached. But it feels to me like one of these ones where they promoted him to see how he gets on. I think calling it a sort of temporary successor, aren't they? He's being named as an interim manager, and if he does well, I guess he might get the job on a full-time basis.
I think the big part of this for the owners of Eldense, obviously new owners of Eldense as well, is not to jump, 2 foot into a decision. Obviously, I think the Cabello decision was made obviously shortly after that was announced. Whether that was their decision entirely is another story potentially, but I think they'll be looking to do their due diligence on this. As you've mentioned, Barjan has got good pedigree before. He's been an experienced coach, as you had mentioned, the likes of Elche locally, Mirandés, Cádiz, etc. So if it works out for him, they've gained everything. If it doesn't work out and they have to bring in a new manager, which they were going to do anyway, then there's nothing lost either. So it feels like quite a good decision. It just depends how long they do it for, because obviously time is ticking on in this season. We're just shy of a quarter of the way through now, Liam, if you would believe that. And this is when, teams like Eldense need to make a decision to make sure that they can take advantage of that and, put some good runs together going into the final, essences of the season as well, which is weird to say after a quarter of a season, but we're there. Another departure, Liam, like I say, there's been a few that were talking about that 8-week itch. Another one was finally confirmed last week, just after we recorded the morning of, and it was over in the Balearics.
Yeah, we said we thought Paco Jimenez was pretty much out the door when we recorded, although it hadn't yet been confirmed. He was confirmed as being moved out the next day, and they brought in a former Villarreal B coach, Miguel Alvarez. Only again, talking of timings of these coaching appointments, he's only been given until the end of the season. And again, it feels to me like safe pair of hands, hopefully guide us to at least the playoffs. If it doesn't work out, then even if it doesn't work out before, then I suppose you're not having to hand in a big payout, are you, to a coach, because you're only basically giving him a 7 or 8 month contract. So yeah, I can see the logic behind it, and we'll see how he gets on there.
Yeah, and again, he's not someone that we mentioned last week, for example, as a potential successor. I think we were talking about maybe, for want of a better word, sexier appointments, Liam, for a club like Ibiza and how they like to position themselves and display themselves. I think, Miguel Alvarez is a bit of a wild card in this, but let's not forget, he's done well at this level. He's obviously been in charge of Villarreal B for a long time, I think since 2017, before he left at the end of last season. It wasn't a great season for Villarreal B last time round, but he had got them promoted to the Spanish Segunda. I can't remember if he kept them up or not, Liam. I'm pretty sure they stayed up for a season or two.
Yeah, they weren't straight back down again. No, he did have some experience of keeping them in Segunda. Clearly a different kind of model in terms of the players available to him. But yeah, he's not got a bad record at Villarreal B, and I was interested he moved on. I kind of felt like at his age that was probably his last job, and he just decided he'd had enough of it. But clearly he's been persuaded to come and do a few more months at Ibiza, and if it works out well, he might well be back in Segunda next year, mightn't he?
Well, we spoke. Well, I say we spoke to him. We were there when he was spoken at the end of the Galecano Deportivo game, and it kind of felt like he was up for maybe retirement at that time. He really didn't seem to, for want of a better word, give a shit at the end of that.
Weary. I just felt I was watching. He just sat there like, oh my god, here I am. I've just had enough. So yeah, I was really surprised that when he left it in the last season, I thought, yeah, that just seems like he's just really done his time and he doesn't want to do it anymore. But he's clearly decided he's missed it in the last few months and he's back for another shot at it. Away from sort of managerial appointments, sackings, etc. We know that there are 2 teams currently playing on artificial pitches in Primera RFEF who can't carry on playing on those for much longer. Europa we've talked about at some length in terms of their requirement to go and find someone else to play that isn't the No Sardinia. And this week we had a confirmation of where another one of those 2 teams is going to play from February onwards, didn't we?
We did. I believe you were here this weekend doing a bit of a scouting mission for us, Liam. And obviously this is an excellent question that you asked to Enrique or John Enrique or Erice. I can't quite. Erice, that's his name.
Yeah.
In your interview, which obviously very excellent. Go and check that out on our social media channels and on YouTube as well if you want to go and see how Liam got on speaking to the head coach of Arenas de Getxo. So they're going to be playing at Fedora. You sent me a video of it. It's a bit rustic, but I quite like it. It's a bit different. Like I can't imagine you'll want to sit in the stand. It's about a mile away from the pitch, but it's going to have some improvements done to it. I think the city council are going to put about €1 million, aren't they, Liam, to sort of like bring improvements, not just for, Arenas de Getxo, but is it Sede Getxo played there as well? So, good investment.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. And again, talking to the people at Arenas de Getxo, you can't put a grass pitch there. It's the same problem as at Europa. There's something under the pitch, basically. I think it's a gym or something. So it's a car park at Europa, isn't it? So they cannot lay a grass pitch there. So if they have to play a grass pitch, the obvious solution is Fadura, which is about a 20-minute walk away. It's still in Getxo, fair enough, all good. However, those of you who had an eye on our social media feeds over the weekend will see that I posted a video of what it looks like now, right now, and they're supposed to play there in February. My word, they've got a lot of work to do in the next 3 months. That's all I can say. And the biggest issue, I think, is parking, because the football pitch at Fadura is right next to a big complex. It's got an Olympic swimming pool. It's got hockey pitches. It's got rugby pitches. The parking, Nick, is an absolute shambles. And that's even before Arenas de Getxo move in. So that, I don't know how they're going to solve that problem. But as you can also see, they've got a couple of stands, which are just bench seats. They might get away with not improving those. But there's nothing on 3 sides of the ground. There's nothing behind either goal. And nothing down one side of the pitch. So I imagine they're going to put some of these sort of temporary stands in. But as I say, whatever they are going to have to do, they're going to have to do it very quickly, and it's going to require some spectacular speed, which the Spanish are not always renowned for, are they? So full speed ahead now. They've made that decision, and yeah. You're right. It is rustic, lots of trees and everything. It's quite a scenic setting. But I was just sitting there watching Stade de Getxo play in the 6th tier of Spanish football, thinking, how on earth can this host even a 3rd tier Spanish game in just over 3 months? But yeah, we'll see what happens.
Which really begs the question, doesn't it? And like I said, maybe I'm not too sort of like familiar with this, but you look at Europa and Arenas de Getxo. They've both got really kind of like grounds which are very important to Embocobela and Nusa and obviously they've got to look to relocate to other places where the facilities just aren't up to scratch at all. Like even the pitch where Europa are going to go play, it's got this massive running track around it and kind of like half a stand, and it's just not going to be the same. Just looking obviously where you were at this weekend, Lee, why haven't Arenas sort of like reached out to, say, a Barakaldo or to a Sestao River Club or something like that, just to say, like, just whilst we try and address this, can we do a bit of a ground share? Is this pride at work, or is this just logistics, or is it, what is it? Because surely that's the better fix for all of them. They're not far from each other, are they?
Well, the Europa one, I suppose we are told that there is no real suitable grass pitch anywhere near them, apart from this one that's got, as you say, the athletics track round, which ironically is very, very close to their big rival, Sant'Andrea, where they play. That's an artificial pitch. They couldn't possibly borrow that, even if they could risk the riot that would ensue if they did try and play at the home of their local rivals. I know what you're saying. I mean, interestingly, if you listen, I did an Pozo en Directo, didn't I? This weekend about my trip to both Barakaldo and Getxo. The 2 sides of the river is really interesting, Nick, how different they are. And I just wonder whether it's just something that neither side is prepared to accept. And Sestao, yeah, it's not very far away. I mean, at least they are staying in Getxo. And I suppose that's a good thing, but it will really affect, as John Anithia said in his interview, why they're so successful at home. And it's even more apparent when you go to Arenas de Getxo's home ground at the moment with Gobela. It's a small pitch, and they are very, very good at pressing and very, very closing you down. And when you make that pitch significantly bigger, they're going to have a problem. So you would think they would be looking for a pitch that's more similar in dimensions to their own pitch, and that certainly isn't Fadura, which is a big open grass pitch. So yeah, interesting times ahead. And yeah, I don't really know, to be honest, but I can see why there would be a desire to stay in Getxo, because Barakaldo is only just the other side of the river, but it is a world away in so many ways, Nick. You have to go there to see it, to believe it, to be honest.
I feel compelled. We'll have to go back again, Liam. I feel like you've sold it to me now. I need to go see this myself. Hopefully before they move out of Gobela as well, because they did look absolutely incredible. And do go check out Liam's, El Pozo en Directo. It was a really, really great listen, and also his interview with the Arenas club manager, which is really cool as well. So, yes, speaking of Barakaldo, Liam, you were there on Friday night in the Estadio Lesere. You were there for quite a win for the home side. What is going on with Tenerife right now? They are not the formidable giants that we thought they were going. We were speaking not even 3 weeks ago, Liam, about how they could absolutely run away with this league, and now they are already being pegged back. And it's, again, Barakaldo, Friday night, 2-0 loss. Talk us through it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say too much because those of you who choose to listen to El Pozo in direct will hear about 15 minutes of me talking about the game. You won't hear very much about the first half, I have to say, because I noticed as well, I rewatched the highlights, and the highlights comprise one shot on goal. That is it. They covered the highlights of the first half in about 8 seconds on the on YouTube. But yeah, I mean, I have to say that once Barakaldo went ahead in this game, there was only one winner. Tenerife just did not respond. And we know Barakaldo on the home turf are really, really good, really strong, really well organised. And, had De La Sota coaching them in a certain way now for 4 years. And everyone knows what they're about, but it's not always that easy to stop what they're doing. And yeah, I just think Tenerife just did not respond. They were okay in the last 20 minutes, but for me, they were never going to get anything out of this game. And I think you've seen a few comments. I think Gallego made a comment this week, sort of saying, the centre forward, Enrique Gallego of Tenerife, saying, anyone who thought this was going to be a walkover was foolish, and I think that's hopefully the message that's beginning to get through to the players. If there are any players that aren't seeing like Gallego, we're going to have to earn this. We might have won our first 6, but since then we picked 1 point out of 9 for the next 3 games. And I think conversely, from a Barakaldo point of view, they're going to start believing they really can do better than last year. They're into the playoff positions now, aren't they? And they fell away a bit last year when they really need to push on. And they were tremendous on Friday night in terms of their work rate and their attitude. And tell us a bit more about San Bartolome, eh?
Oh, well, he's really bad at football. This was just a fluke. He's really not that great. So if anyone is listening from Athletic Club, don't bother. Don't even send anybody to watch him. He's really not that great. To be honest, I don't know what his story is. He might not even qualify for Athletic Club. I need to check out his background really. But I tell you what a show he's.
I'm afraid to say, Nick, he's born and bred in Barakaldo, so that's not.
Oh no, yeah, that's right. I mean, I think what you were trying to say, Liam, is that he was born in the northern part of France. He's from Brest or something like that, isn't he? So with a name like San Bartolome.
It's funny. It's funny you say that because they were saying, and I'd forgotten this, of course. I knew Sonadi was there last year, of course, and that Athletic Club plucked him from the depths of Primera Federación to play in their first team about 2 months later. But I hadn't realized, of course, they could only do that in the winter transfer window. So he was there, Sonadi, for longer than I remembered, and was obviously at lights out. And then clearly, when he left, that's when things started to go a little bit downhill for Barakaldo. So yeah, as you can imagine, there was a lot of talk about San Bartolome this weekend. please just stay here. Please just ignore him down the road. And he could be the difference, couldn't he? I mean, the first goal was a bit scrappy, and he just kind of posed it in. The second one is a beautiful finish, isn't it? It really is class. Yeah. He sees the keeper coming out and just chips it over him.
Absolutely, and this is where you see the class of the player, where he's got that composure to be able to finish in such a manner. And let's not forget, this isn't a a striker that we talk about. This is a proper number 10, really, isn't he, Liam? I know he wears the number, but he is an all-out number 10 for Barakaldo, and he makes them tick. And he brings a lot of other players into play, so it's not just his goal scoring that he's known for, just his general demeanour. And his talent is there to see. And as we've mentioned to anyone listening from the big club down the road, he's not worth it. I think he's got a release clause of about 40 million as well, so don't worry about it.
Leave him there. He's also his birthday on Sunday, so what a great weekend for him.
Oh, absolutely. And again, great for Barakaldo. Like I say, they're just going about their business, and they'll be hoping that they can, as you said, Liam, go one better than last season. Let's not forget they were promoted the season before last, so last season was quite a surprise result for them to finish mid-table anyway. But there just does seem to be something going on there, and they are quite set for. If I was to look at some of the teams within Primera F, in terms of ranking Barakaldo as a club that could go up to Segunda and do well, I would say they're only a couple of signings away from being a solid Segunda club. So why not? We'll keep an eye on them with good interest. My second game of the week, and I must apologise already for this one, Liam, because we recommended 6 games for people to watch. I think combined, there was only 5 goals. And we had 3 0-0s, of which 2 of them were mine, so I'll apologise in advance. The first one was Arenteiro versus Pontevedra. That finished 0-0. Another Galician derby, which we had 2 listeners at as well, Liam, which was quite nice to see some of their photos coming through. One of them described the away stand at Arenteiro like being crammed in because the front of the stand and the back wall of the stand were so close that you actually couldn't move, which is quite interesting to see. A really big crowd in Arenteiro as well for this one. Good away following, but sadly no goals, Liam. It was both sides hit the woodwork, but that was about it.
Yeah, there are a lot of Galician derbies, aren't there? I think the one that's closest together is Arenteiro against Orense. I think that's only about 15 miles between those. I mean, obviously Arenteiro is not a place for those who don't know that part of the world. It's Arenteiro playing a place called O Carvalhinho, I think it's called, or something along those lines. Anyway, I'm not 100% sure about my Gallego. But yeah, that's the really local derby. But this is only about, I think, 45 miles, isn't it, or something like that. And as you say, really, I've not seen a big crowd for an Arenteiro home game in Primera Federación than this one. But yeah, I'd love to go there because I could imagine what this listener described is absolutely right. That it feels very, very shallow, shall we say, all the way around the ground. You could probably stand about 2 people in it, from back to front of the stand. But yeah, it wasn't a great game overall, let's be honest. But yeah, a couple of, I think Arenteiro slightly shaded it overall. I think they hit the woodwork twice and Pontevedra hit it once. But yeah, not a great game. And derbies often aren't, are they? They often an awful lot of perspiration and not a lot of inspiration. And this wasn't a classic. But Arenteiro, difficult to beat on their own patch. And Pontevedra, I think, will probably take the point in terms of the old English method: draw your away games, win your home games. But yeah, it was a bit disappointing, but obviously worthy of being picked as one of the 3. As was Unionistas Lugo for me, which unfortunately also ended goalless.
Yes, another goalless draw. We did kind of like try to cheer on Mario Simon after his heroics in the last couple of games, and like I say, for Unionistas, compared to where they were 3 weeks ago, this is really good for them. They're sort of like back in the chase. I think they're still just inside the relegation zone after this weekend's result, but a 0-0 draw at home against Lugo is a result that you definitely can't shake a stick at. Very, very well supported by the home faithful, as you've mentioned here, Liam, as this game did clash with El Clásico. So, I know which game you were watching as well, Liam. You weren't watching Real Madrid-Barcelona, where you were watching Unionistas versus Lugo. For definite.
Of course I was, and I wasn't overly disappointed because I wouldn't been watching Real Madrid Barcelona anyway. But to be fair, yeah, I felt I was pleased to see. You just think, I mean, they don't have any control over this, do they? The club, and so when that game came out at the same time as the Clásico, we know that not everybody supports Real Madrid or Barcelona in Spain, but it's such a big occasion that there's an awful lot of people, if they've got any interest in football at all, will watch it. And I think there are nearly 3,000 there, which I don't think is massively below their average attendance at home. So that's brilliant. And I'm not saying they deserve a pat on the back for that, but I still think personally I was quite impressed. And as I say, I was disappointed they didn't get a better game because it wasn't a classic either. Lugo again struggling to win on the road, and we've said this before, they need to win more of their away games. Unionistas, as you say, very encouraged overall with the last 3 weeks, but still not out of the bottom 5, but much more in touch with the teams just in the safety zone just above it than they were when Mario Simon came in a few weeks ago.
No, definitely. And I think the big thing for Lugo as well is goals at the minute. And I think this is the part where they really need to address the situation they find themselves in. They've got everything to make goals, Liam. And to be fair, watching this game back, they aren't adverse to going forward. Let's put it that way. There just seems to be no end product for them. And again, that's something that Unionistas, we were talking about them a couple of weeks ago, saying they had no end product. They seem to have found somebody who can string that together for them now as a bit of a focal point. Lugo just don't seem to have that at the minute. So it'd be interesting to see whether, Iago Iglesias goes into the market before January or whether he waits till January to try and find a goal scorer. The free, agent market is out there, but they definitely need somebody, don't they? Because, it's getting a bit worrying in terms of how many games are drawing, considering the aspiration was to get promoted this season in Lugo.
I think the problem here is I don't think Unzueta's a bad striker. I think he's done all right. But they're not getting any goals from anywhere else. I don't think the striker is really the problem. I think it's the attacking midfielders just not getting any goals from any deeper in the pitch. So yeah, they need to be less reliant on Unzueta. I know he's not got loads, but he's got several goals. But if he doesn't score, they don't tend to score. So yeah, definitely missing something there, although they would say as long as we keep winning the home games and we draw the away games, that'll do very nicely. Thank you.
I wonder what John Cabot is up to. I know he was released in the summer, but he loved scoring a goal for Lugo last season. Let's get him back in, boys. Come on. Save some face and pick up the phone.
Big fan of John Cabot, aren't you? Yeah. Who knows?
Yeah, John Cabot.
I agree. I think that the aspirations are probably higher than what they're achieving at the moment, but they're not losing many, I suppose. That's all you can say. And they are picking up some wins at home and some draws away. So it's a fairly consistent in and around it still, but probably still feeling slightly underwhelmed with how things have gone so far. Let's move on to Grupo 2. Algeciras against Alcorcon. Big result for Algeciras this was, wasn't it? They've only got 1 point for the last 3 games, and arguably the goal of the weekend to win it.
Yeah, really. So, a great result for Algeciras here, and against, a solid Alcorcon side too. Let's not forget, we've been sort of like, patting them on the back and celebrating them in the last few weeks for their performances. This is a lovely volley from Isaac Obeng, though. I think on loan from Cardiff, if I remember rightly. It's sort of like chipped in, finds him in the box, and you just kind of like, it's not like a laces through, is it, Lee? It's like a nice place beyond the goalkeeper, and a really tidy finish from the on loan man. Again, just a great result for Algeciras here, isn't it? It just really helps to sort of like stop the rot a little bit for them, because they've had some disappointing results in the last few weeks.
They have, yeah. One of my favourite bits about this first half was Ivan Torrillo. I like Ivan Torrillo, as we said before. He's one of those who's been there forever, a real club man. But I mean, I'm sorry. He seems to be adamant that this goal that's disallowed, it comes off his chest. Every angle I've seen of it clearly hits his arm. I mean, it's not like he's never scored before. It's not like he's a 1 goal in every 250 appearances. Ivan, come on. That's a handball. It's absolutely fuming when it gets disallowed. I don't know what you think on this one.
Did you see his tweet about it as well, which he addressed to the referees? And I think he's dying on this hill, to you fairly. I'm very much in agreement with you, but he did share a tweet. I can't remember if it was to the RFEF. Or whether it was direct to the referee directly, I'm not too sure, but he was clearly not very happy about this one, and still maybe went home, and it hadn't quite gotten off his chest that he opened up his phone and decided to put it out into the ether. Other main talking points in this one.
He is a man who wears his heart on his sleeve, isn't he, man? I'd love to be with you here. I'd love to tap into your sense of injustice and come on board with you. But it looks like handball to me. I'm really sorry.
Oh no! And another player who, a few weeks ago we were, really praising. I think he made your team of the week twice in a row, and that was Mayorga. Last few weeks he's scored, I think, 2 own goals, and now he's got himself sent off. So it seems to be a bit of a turnaround in form from him, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, this is what, for me, this is a red. It's not. I don't think you could call it. It's not like he studs him halfway up his leg or anything like that, but he just absolutely cleans him out. He's got no intention of playing the ball. His only intention is to chop him down. He's nowhere near the ball. The referee does pull out his red card very, very quickly. It's like a trigger hand in the pocket, really. But yeah, I think it's a red card, and they do appeal it, and it's upheld by the referee, and I think rightly so. And then we have later on in that half, Mariano gets his marching orders. This is one of the ones I hate to see, but I think Mariano does raise his hands. If you do that, you're silly. That's put him in a real difficult situation, because he as I say, gets the red card for striking, shall we say, one of the Algeciras players who rolls around the ground like he's been hit by Mike Tyson in his prime. But there, of course, Vladis didn't play in this game because he's injured, and now Mariano's suspended for the next game. So Alcorcon, not in a good place in terms of strikers for this forthcoming weekend. But I mean, I've watched this disallowed Alcorcon goal in stoppage time at the end of the game more times than you'd care to imagine, Nick. I still cannot work out why it's disallowed. And then for the referee to raise his arm, which appears to indicate to me he's given offside. There's no offside there. It's just utterly bizarre. It's a perfectly good goal from my point of view.
And another one of these instances as well where, let's call a spade at Nuevo Mirador. The camera angles are better than some places, but it's very difficult, even watching it back to see what an offside would look like. And for me, that's going to be one of the clearest ones you see where it's not offside, if fairly. So I don't know if he was trying to save face or whether he was just influenced by other things, but it is a shame for Alcorcon to have that injury time equaliser disallowed, because it would have been a great point on the road, let's not forget, but obviously great for Algeciras to put 3 points on the board too. Let's go speak about our third 0-0 game out of the 6 games we recommend everybody to watch. Sabadell nil.
Stop reminding our listeners or viewers.
We just got to tell you, they've got to have their own mind sometimes. We can't give them everything, but we point them in the right directions. And to be fair, on paper, all these matches look great. In practicality, it must have been just a bit of an off weekend. Maybe we shouldn't have been so surprised about Sabadell at home. Obviously, this has been painted as a Catalonian derby. It was very well hyped up online, it must be said. But Sabadell have only scored 1 goal in their last 5 home games. So despite being unbeaten so far this season, they've not really been as inspiring at home as they have been away. Was this a game of plenty of near misses, or was it as drab as maybe it looks like on the scoreline?
Yeah, it wasn't a classic. I think Kostia hit the bar with a header from a corner second half, but overall, yeah, a few half chances for the home side, almost nothing for the away side. I felt quite sorry for the Nasic fans. I mean, yeah, it's a Catalonian. Could you call it a derby? I suppose in Spanish terms it is a derby, but it's got to be over an hour from Tarragona to Sabadell. And yeah, a brilliant turnout from the Nasic fans. I don't know how many there were there, but there must have been close to 1,000, I would say, which is superb. Superb away following that is. And I just felt like they deserved better. I felt the team were fairly meh, if I'm honest. They might say it's a good point against an unbeaten side, but as you say, Sabadell have only scored 1 goal in 4 games going to this one. I would have expected Gymnastic to do a bit better in the attacking third, and they really didn't offer much at all. Talking of disappointments, especially for fans, Atlético Sanluqueño 0, Juventud Torremolinos 2. Not a good place right now, the home side, are they?
No, it's very worrying at the minute for Atlético Sanluqueño because they obviously started the season so well. I think it was 6 unbeaten to begin with. I've really fallen off the face of a cliff here. I think it's 3 defeats in a row now. And again, Torremolinos obviously have got their own troubles, who have been fighting sort of like against the tide. This is a fantastic result for them, so let's not take anything away from them. But you'd like to think that, the home side should be competing with Torremolinos here. And I don't know if you managed to catch the goals, Liam, but, one of them is just a simple tapping. It sort of like just rolls through to him, finds the man completely unmarked, sort of like schoolboy type defending, really. Maybe for the second one, we can say, had a bit more about it. It was sort of like swung in, a really good goal, really good finish. But again, as we've just said, a bit of a worry for Sanluqueño, really, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. I think back to that game not so long ago at home that they played against Cartagena when they were absolutely outstanding. They blew Cartagena away. And I really thought at that stage that their position wasn't a false one. They were right at the top of that stage. And I thought, wow, they can play this against one of the sides expected to be right at the top, And then, of course, since then, Cartagena have been not necessarily particularly expansive, but they've been very effective, and they are, at the time of recording, second in the league. I just thought that things bode really well for them, but unfortunately since then they've been really, really poor. I have to say, I don't like to dwell on FES in every show that we record, Nick, but we had a situation in this game, and this is for a team that are struggling, where we had an FES appeal from Juventud Torremolinos for a second yellow card. And Tunkara had already been booked. The referee didn't give him a second yellow card, and the FES appeal was for a second yellow card. That, for me, can get in the bin. That is an absolute nonsense. If we've got FES appeals for yellow cards now, that's ridiculous. We need to start. We really need to look at FES for next season, and there's a few amendments that must be made, and this is one of them for me.
Yeah, there was a few people talking to us online this week and sort of around the how it works, and I think there is a balance there somewhere, isn't there, between sort of like the how it should be used and how it should not be used. It needs to be struck, because at the minute it's seemingly that anything is up for grabs here in terms of like challenge for a decision, which just doesn't feel right. And we'll talk about a game very, very shortly that had a massive talking point around FES. So yeah, it's a bit of an odd one, because it does disadvantage teams. It does time waste. It does allow teams maybe to lose a bit of flow and stifle people potentially if they're taking long breaks. So yeah, it's something that definitely needs to be addressed.
I think that James made a really good point with James, the Pontevedra and Huddersfield fan, who he mentioned something, and he said we need a time limit as well. We need to decide this decision needs to be made, because these decisions are taking regularly 5 minutes, and that this is supposed to be something that's supposed to just clear up any doubt. Well, if you're spending 5 minutes looking at a decision, then clearly there is doubt, and then you move on. I mean, this is obsessed with getting the right decision. Now, I know partly that's because, you know, they have to be speaking to the guy on the camera. Well, by some means or other, they need to be speaking while they're back in headquarters to get it rewound, because they don't have control over it. They don't have a booth and everything. So that slows the process down. But I'm sorry, if 5 minutes, it's just ludicrous. It just completely ruins the flow of the game. And when that's happening, you know, maybe once or twice over the 90 minutes, it cannot be advantageous to the football that we're watching.
Well, we look at the you know, amount of games that are not only going beyond the 100-minute mark, but are actually goals are being scored beyond the 100-minute mark as well. And you know, you've got to ask yourself the question: if you don't have these breaks, so obviously have been taken and incorporated that time it does to the FES. You know, do they score that goal? Legs get tired, players get a bit leggy. You've got an extra 10, 15 minutes sometimes where you've got an opportunity to go and get a goal or an equaliser, and it does start to affect results in games and things like that. And I think there are a couple of teams that are about getting ready to press that particular button, aren't they, in terms of like addressing it? I know we were speaking about Guadalajara last week in terms of, you know, how they felt a bit about a couple of the decisions that they've had penalty-wise in the last couple of weeks. So, it should be an interesting conversation, which I would dare say, Liam, probably needs to be had sooner rather than later. I think waiting until the end of the season probably isn't going to be the time to do it. Maybe the winter break could be a chance to do a bit of a reset and update to the rules. I don't know if that's allowed, but something certainly needs to be addressed. Should we have a look at the other games around the leagues as well, the ones we didn't pick for everyone to watch, because there are lots of goals out there, which we could have recommended for everyone to watch. Starting as well midweek, Liam, obviously we had a game which was postponed a couple of weeks back because of the weather. Heracles against Atleti B. This was the game in hand. A massive result for Heracles in this one. You know, we've seen Fernando Torres' Atleti side, you know, looking like one of the most formidable sides in this league in Grupo Dos, and they got absolutely spanked by Heracles here, 3-0 on the night.
Yeah, really impressive this was. I think back-to-back wins, wasn't it? I think both of the filiales as well. I think Heracles beat Villarreal B the week before. All 3 goals in the second half. Really enjoyed Unai Pero's goal. He was at Eldense last season, so he has got Reese Segunda experience, so she should be able to cope with this level, certainly. And one of those, he shifted onto his left foot and then smashed it high into the net. Really impressive. And of course, that cost Fernando Torres' Atleti B side the chance to go top, as that was a catch-up game. If they'd won it, they would have leapfrogged the other sides and got to the top of the league. But they didn't wait too long to get there, did they? As we'll decide, not decide, as we will find out later on. So we'll get to this game then, as it was the next, I suppose, in terms of the chronological order of games. Merida 0, Ponferradina 0, and this is the talking point. And having talked about the amount of time it's taken to make decisions, I won't go over it again. But this is one of these games where there was a 5-minute delay while they decided to disallow Benjamin Di Brani's goal for interference with one of his teammates, claiming he was in offside position. And in that offside position, he impeded basically one of the Ponferradina's defenders' chances to block the shot from Di Brani. I thought that was a nonsense. I don't think he'd have got there anyway. And why it took 5 minutes. We had the referee on his mobile at one point. I mean, how ridiculous is that? I don't know what you thought, but this is one of these ones where, as you say, and I'm with you, Nick. I think that if they're allowed, they need to go and have a chat about it, and they need to ask clubs what they think, and there needs to be some sort of agreement as to some modifications for the second half of the season, because we can't have things like this going on. And regardless of what you think of the eventual decision, it certainly shouldn't have taken 5 minutes to make that decision.
Yes, as much as we've sort of like applauded technology being introduced in the third tier, nothing sums it up more than the referee with his elbow on the monitor on the phone to whoever it is that he was speaking to, just to see whether we could get this decision sorted. But for me, this is an absolute nonsense. There's not too many angles you can watch this back, to be fair, but you can quite clearly see that he gets out of the way. And, you know, you see it at a much higher level as well, where players, you know, in essence, he acknowledges that he's offside by not wanting to get involved, by straightening up the back, arms up, he's out of the way, and he just lets the ball continue. For me, he's not blocking anybody there. He's just stood. He's not interfering, so say. And it's such a shame as well, because it was a really good goal too for Merida, who, you know, have found, you know, good form at home, Liam. I think they would have, you know, really benefited from a win here, which would have sort of like put them on the right track to maybe actually getting out of a lot of trouble and moving quite, you know, solidly into mid-table with this result. Ponfe, again, I suppose they'll take it as a bit of a result, but, you know, another goalless draw for them. They're just not the side that they were last season. I think it's maybe a season of consolidation for them, isn't it?
Yeah, might well be. I felt most sorry for Gibrani here, to be honest. I think it's the first game he started for Merida. He's a young winger from Kosovo. Not sure many of those in Primera RFEF, as far as I know. And he rattled the bar with a screamer in the first half. A couple of inches lower, that would have been his first goal for the club. And then he has this one disallowed, and I agree with you. I think it's a nonsense. I don't think there's enough interference for that to be given offside. But yeah, he ended the night with no goal to his name. And yeah, Pomfrey overall, yeah, I mean, they might yet sneak into the playoffs, but yeah, not enough from them yet to convince me that they're up for that. Tarazona 1, Betis Deportivo 0. Tarazona, what can we say about them? They've yet to concede a goal at home. They've won 3 games and drawn 1 at home. And this time it's Sergio Almeida who scores. Classic sort of poacher's goal. Ball across on the left-hand side. And he slides in on the edge of the 6-yard box and pokes it home under pressure from a Betis Deportivo defender. Last 20 minutes, they played with 10 men at Tarazona, and they still couldn't find a way through Betis Deportivo. I just love the spirit of this side, and clearly big disappointment for the Betis filial after winning their first game last weekend. But I just you can't praise this side enough, can you, Tarazona? I know they're not always great to watch, but the spirit in that team is just brilliant.
Well, for Tarazona, like you said, they seemingly have sort of everything pointed against them this season in terms of, it's not malicious. That's not what I'm saying at all. It's just logistics. It's the squad. It's the losing of 2 or 3 of their best players from last season in what was an incredible season where they finished just outside the playoffs. But even now, they just seem to have that backs to the wall attitude where they think, or as we can see, we're going to make it difficult for you to come here. We don't want you to enjoy yourself in Tarazona. If it's a long way for us to go, it's a long way for you to come, and we're going to make it hard for you. And this is a scathing indictment of that to say, let's do it. Betis Deportivo, obviously, a side that aren't doing very well this season. Having Medina must be really kicking himself, leaving Antequera to come and look after this, which is surprising, really, because I think Betis Deportivo were the highest, second highest spenders in Grupo Dos this summer, just behind Athletic B. It's just really not going right for them this season. And I don't even say that it's because Javi Medina's a bad manager. He clearly has a bit of a talent. It's just the squad just doesn't seem that arsed.
No, this is always a dangerous filials, isn't it? How bothered are they really? It's they've not been good this season, and Tarazona took advantage of that and didn't yield when they might have done, didn't buckle. Arenas Club de Guecho 3, Guadalajara 0 again, as we mentioned already. I talked at some length about this game on the El Pozo Directo on the same feed as this main show, so I'm not going to say too much about it, but a massive thank you to Johnny Leithe for his willingness to be our first ever Primera RFEF coach interviewee in English. And again, a side who, well, on the interview I did with him, I picked out a central midfielder who I'm very confident, and he seems to think as well, is capable of playing at a higher level in due course. Alex, I thought he was absolutely tremendous, and they really were brilliant. And you can see why that home pitch plays to their advantages, plays to their strengths, because they do close down the space so well, and it's a smaller pitch, and it probably explains why they struggle more on their travels, because it's a lot more grass to cover to play in the same way. But tremendous from them, a really welcoming, lovely club, and a brilliant result. And they are doing so well on their own pitch, and I really hope that when they move to Fadura, they can continue to do well.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, because we've seen Guadalajara in the flesh this season. We've seen how they like to play, and they like to play, good possession-based, expansive football. They just couldn't do on this pitch, could they? And Arenas Club really limited them, and they'll go back and look to readdress this now, and hopefully get a result next weekend. Cathreño 0, Ourense 0. I'm going to say. So it wasn't written down here. Another decent result, the face of it, for the visitors, but still no wins after 9 weeks of the season. Liam, it's a pretty bad time for Daniel Ether's team. I think, like you say, we've seen improvements, but it's just a bit. You don't win any. You're going to get relegated. That's the formula, isn't it? That's what we're talking about.
I suspect they won't start by drawing games. No, exactly. And of course, 5 teams going down as well. They're only on 5 points, so they've got a long way to go to get anywhere near safety, even after 9 weeks of the season. So yeah, tricky one there. Catherine's pitch worries me. I was really hoping, I've seen a few pitches this season that looked bad initially. I'm thinking particularly in division above with Theuta's pitch, which was pretty poor when it's first laid and then settled in nicely. Catalonia's pitch still looks a mess, unfortunately, and I do hope that doesn't work against them in the long run, because it's a newly laid pitch, obviously, and they're a bit reliant on weather, etc. But it isn't a good surface at all. I'm not saying that had anything to do with the overall result, but it's still worrying to see a pitch, and then at a time when, as we've said before, artificial pitches are not allowed. You really don't want teams playing on pitches that are as poor as our Catharenia's is at the moment. Celta Fortuna 2, Racing de Ferrol 1. Interesting they moved this to Balaidos, presumably because they knew that Racing Club de Ferrol would bring a fair number of supporters, and they certainly did. I thought it had a little bit of atmosphere, considering it was in a massive stadium with not many people in it. It was quite noisy. But I think overall, the visitors will be wondering how they didn't win this, won't they?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I don't know why they sat them up in the gods, though. That was quite a strange decision to make from this big, giant, I assume about, 30, 35,000, 40,000 seater stadium, and just let's put them up in the corner. Why not? But yeah, they must be wondering how they lost this. 2 disallowed goals for Alvaro Jimenez in the first half. Pascu just putting them in front just after the break there. But then, they just couldn't see it out. And Celta Fortuna, who in the last couple of weeks have, not had the results they've been posting previously, just managed to turn it around, didn't they?
They did. Gavian, I mean, they got given another break, didn't they? Because Gavian equalised, and then he picked up a second yellow card. So it's 1-1 against 10 for the last 25 minutes for Racing Club de Ferrol. And then the big number 9, Alvaro Marin, who's not done amazingly so far at Celta Fortuna. It's an interesting one for me because he looks like a classic English centre forward. He was at Amorebieta last year. He scored 8 goals, I think, even though they went down. But not, for me, the obvious signing of a club like Celta who want to keep the ball on the floor and knock it around. But he took his goal really well here. He was in far too much space, but he finished well with his head. And I think Club de Ferrol will be very disappointed with that one overall. They really should have got at least a point out of this game. Talavera 2, Osasuna Promesas 0. This is our ideal scenario week in, week out, isn't it, Nick? Promoted team beats Filial. we love that combination. And they started so well in this one, didn't they? Pito, I think, scored the first couple of minutes. And then a net buster from an ex-Malaga player, Nick.
Yes, it was one from Bilal, which we shared on social media. An absolute thunderstrike from the end of the box. I didn't know he had that in him, to be fair. I didn't really see him score too many for Malaga previously. To be honest, I was surprised to see he's ended up in Talavera. I think last time I saw him was with Fuenlabrada. So it's nice to see him back, to be fair, and playing football in that resplendent kit. Job done for Talavera. They just seem to be getting everything done at the minute in terms of beating their opponents and putting points on the board. Osasuna Promesas, not so much, Liam. That's 5 games without a win for Osasuna's B team, who didn't really do too well last season. We've tipped him for relegation. It's looking a bit more likely now. They just can't seem to find a break, can they?
No, they can't. They're one of 2 filiales in Grupo 1 that are really struggling at the moment. Unfortunately, in the other Grupo, we have, it's the same Grupo, isn't it? Real Madrid Castilla 2, Real Avilés 0. This is our least favourite scenario week in, week out, isn't it? Filial beating promoted side. The flip side of what we were just talking about. But another Malaga player, former Malaga player, I should say, on the score sheet in this one, wasn't there?
Yeah, 2 very well taken goals from Lorenz Zuniga, who I regularly mocked on my previous guys for not being too great, apart from one time when he was in Linares, where he took a ball down from the gods with a wonderful Maradona-esque touch. But in this, he looks a completely different player, and to be fair to him, he left Malaga under a bit of a cloud. He didn't go straight into Castilla either. He spent last season in Real Madrid C, which I think is Tercera División. And yeah, he's now, in with the Castilla, sort of like maybe taking up, one of the positions of Gonzalo Garcia, who's gone on to obviously into the first team. And he's taken his chance. And I think that's now 3 goals from this season in 8 games, which, he must be happy with. Obviously, we're not happy with it because obviously it's a filial, beating a newly promoted side, Liam. But when Castilla are playing like this, similar to Athletic Bay, they're sort of going to be up there, aren't they?
Yeah, both sides look quite menacing, don't they, at the moment? I think what you said last week, the Real Castilla a little bit inconsistent. And I suppose both sides, they are both young sides, obviously, by definition. So they're going to have their off days, but both of them look like they are a good bet to finish in their respective top fives in their grupos. Unfortunately, we'll hope that doesn't come to pass. Ibiza 0, Teruel 1. So Miguel Alvarez's first game in charge on the island. Disappointing start for him. But again, Teruel, 1 goal conceded from the last 5 games. Quite remarkable. And they had son of Palop. I did look up son of Palop. He's Alejandro, isn't he? Because you quite rightly said that his dad had mostly played for Sevilla, but he did start his career at Valencia. He played about 100 games for them before going on to be, as you say, much more famous at Sevilla. And his son made a brilliant save in this game to deny Unai Medina. That was about all he had to do all game. And then a really soft penalty, which Alex Blesser scored for the visitors, and that was it really. Teruel win another game 1-0, and they're up to 3rd in the league. Unbelievable.
Doing absolutely brilliant as well. And I believe the question was posed, Liam. I don't know if you saw this in your other podcast Discord group. What would happen if Teruel got promoted into the same league with Huesca and Real Zaragoza came down? That would be quite the paradigm shift in Aragonese football, wouldn't it?
It certainly would, yeah. Although Teruel Huesca is not exactly a local derby, it's about as far away from each other in Aragon as they could possibly get. But yeah, I mean, they're a very similar, for me, sort of setup to Tarazona in the sense that they make themselves difficult to beat. They're very well organised, defend well, and in numbers when required. And when they get the odd chance, they take it. And fair play to them. I think that they're still a very outside bet to finish top 5. But the more points they get on the board early on, the more chance they have of staying in the Grupo, which I think is always going to be their priority. And obviously see a top 5 finish as a real bonus rather than an expectation. Villarreal Villarreal 1, Antequera 1. Antequera again, a decent point here. I think they'll be disappointed that they didn't go on and win this game. You will have no doubt noticed that Villarreal conceded their goal playing out from the back. Nick, you can imagine I was somewhat irritated by that. Nico Njala scored. He's been in form recently, hasn't he, for Antequera? But they conceded the second half equaliser, I think, didn't they? And 1-all is okay. I think it's at 7 points out of 9 for them. Antequera, they'll take that, moving up towards mid-table respectability. But yeah, anytime you go ahead away from home, I suppose you're hoping you can hang on for that. Marbella Cartagena. We didn't put this in our games of the week, at least, did we?
No, absolutely not. Another 0-0. It's just a strange amount of 0-0s this week, and actually think about it across the 20 games. The home side, like you say, will feel that they should have picked up all 3 points because they did come closest to scoring. But obviously, we've already noted how well Cartagena are playing under Javier at the moment. Second in the league as things stand. You just got to sort of maybe look at Marbella and sort of like the aspirations that they have, the squad that they've built. They should be maybe doing a little bit better now, Liam, because they have slipped firmly into mid-table now, where they once went a bit unbeaten at the start of the season and were in the playoff picture. It's looking a bit further away now, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think you can be too disappointed with a 0-0 against Cartagena, can you? Even on your own patch. I mean, I would love to have seen this effort from Alcalde go, and he shoots from inside his own half, and the keeper's not saving it. It goes like maybe a foot over his crossbar, and he is worried, that keeper. He's not going to keep it out. If it dips under the bar,
scrambling.
He's scrambling, absolutely right. He's looking. I couldn't see the look on his face from the TV cameras, but I suspect there was a huge look of relief afterwards. But again, they could have lost this one, couldn't they? I think it's a very marginal offside call. Again, you're not always clear. I didn't watch this one live, so I'm not sure whether it was an offside call initially or whether it was the review was asked for. But, I mean, I don't think Cartagena score. I don't think they're offside. It's a ball into the box, a header across the penalty area, and then a finish. I just don't think it's offside. I mean, it's not a great camera angle. Again, I kind of feel like, I don't know about you, Nick, I do, because I'm a bit like this. I end up trying to freeze the YouTube video, and then I think, well, that's a bit ridiculous because I'm just watching on YouTube. And then I remind myself, this is Primera RFEF. That's pretty much what they're doing. That's pretty much their view is my view. And I don't think
that's
it's offside.
Exactly what they're doing. Yeah, I think if we do get called into the headquarters to speak about how we can improve FES, I think offsides need to be banned from this, because you simply cannot tell. We're not drawing lines like you do with VAR. You are literally looking at a camera thinking, well, could it or couldn't it? And camera angles are so distorted, intentionally to help capture as much, ironically, angles as possible. And, don't get me wrong, there'll be some stadiums which are better prepared for it and other with more cameras. But let's not forget, Marbella play at a training ground. In essence, it's a training centre. They're only going to have one camera up on a bit of scaffolding. You cannot have that. Say if Marbella come to, miss out on promotion at the end of the season by 3 points because of, a goal that's been disallowed from an offside decision from that camera. It's utterly ludicrous, but we won't change anything at the moment. I'm sure we'll look to put our influence in, as limited as it may be.
Send an email then.
Yes, exactly. A hastily written one.
We're
Eldense 1, Real Murcia 1. The fat lady is warming up her tones, isn't she, here, Liam? It can only be a matter of time, surely.
Yeah, one of the interesting things I saw about this was that clearly we're talking about Echeverria's continuity in the hot seat around Murcia. We know that by the time that you listen to this, he may well be gone. And interestingly, I noticed there's been a lot of talk about whether Fran Fernando will come back. And one pundit pointed out today that they've got to pay Fran Fernando for this season anyway. So because they got rid of him in the summertime, and apparently they have to pay him for the remaining year of his contract. Well, obviously wasn't an agreement made. So there's an argument that says, well, he was doing all right, and basically we're paying him anyway. Why don't we just get him back? Which could only happen in Spain, couldn't it? I mean, what Fran Fernando will think about that? He's getting paid for this whole year anyway. Why would he bother? Why wouldn't he just sit and take his money and wait for a club that hasn't sacked him when essentially he did what he was supposed to do, which was get them into the playoffs? That was the stipulation, wasn't it? He did that. They got rid of him anyway. That with Fran Fernandez, I'd tell them to do one. But this wasn't good from Real Murcia. They scraped a draw out of it. I noticed it was raining in Elda, which I've never noticed before. Umbrellas everywhere. Those of you who've been to Eldense's home ground will know that there's not a lot of cover there. So umbrellas to the fore. And as I say, they don't usually get rain down there. So that was unusual. But yeah, not a great game. And talking of rain, Sevilla Atletico 2, Hércules 0. My goodness me. It was absolutely shocking.
I was just going to say, did you notice Pedro Leon as well? It wasn't arguing the fans, but he was trying to explain something to the fans. And obviously, I, not a native Spanish speaker, I couldn't quite pick it up, Liam. So if you've not seen it, definitely go back and look, because you can quite clearly hear him talking about it. And it was very much like, we are trying our best. We are doing this. We are trying to make the system work. And he was kind of maybe appealing for Joseba, in my opinion, whilst also calming down the fans maybe. But definitely go check that out if you haven't seen it yet. As for the rain in Seville, absolutely torrential, as you said. Surprised it didn't get abandoned, Liam, in the same way that Sabadell did. One rule for one rule for the other, maybe.
Yeah, I thought this at one stage should certainly been called off. They carried on. I know it's a long way from Alicante to Sevilla, but no, I'm not sure this was the right decision, although it did relent and the pitch did get better. Again, I don't want to stress too much attention being given to FES. I kind of feel this isn't a penalty. There's a game-changing moment. The referee gives a penalty, checks it with FES, and then still gives a penalty. What's the point in technology if it clearly looks to me like the Ecuador defender gets the ball? What is the point of having a camera there if the referee looks at it and still decides it's a penalty? I think that was a bad call from him. Dorothea, as we know, is under pressure. They won their previous two home games, as we mentioned before. It's just a question whether this one saves him. If this defeat, if those two wins, I should say, mean that this defeat doesn't mean the end of him. It feels to me like he's game to game at the moment, to be honest, and maybe he's just got enough credit in the bank from those previous two home wins to survive this defeat. But yeah, not a stable position he's in at the moment. Zamora 4 and Bilbao Athletic 1.
Yes, it's seemingly, as I put onto the social media yesterday, is that the wealth of Zamora's riches have finally seemingly clicked for this one, Liam. I think someone sort of harped back at us to sort of say that the English think we're rich or something like that, which, I think we can all say that in Primera RFEF terms, going and signing 3 top strikers probably means you've got something about you. And all 3 were involved in the goals here, Liam, as well. We had a Slava with 3 assists. We had a goal for Farrell, his first one for Zamora as well, and a goal for Carbonell, also his first goal. These big 3 summer signings all clicking into gear, Liam. I know it's against a filial, but it's a good sign, isn't it?
It is a good sign. I think Bilbao Athletic are there for the take at the moment. Unfortunately, they've been really poor in recent weeks. They haven't won in the last 5, and they stay in the relegation zone, of course, because of that. But yeah, I think you're right. I think that we know that these players haven't come to Zamora for pocket money, have they? They will have been on good contracts, especially Slava. He did do brilliantly in this game. He looked absolutely a class above anything else on the pitch, Slava. And hopefully the goals for Farhan and Carbonell will boost their confidence and get them going. But yeah, you have to call it as it is. And clearly Zamora have got one of the bigger budgets in this division. So that's just the way it is. And good luck to them. I hope they get the results that they have hoped to get, having spent that money. But right now, it's been disappointing up to now. But this could be a turning point. Last game of the week, and quite significant, although I don't want to spend long on it because it's involving a filial. Athletic B2 all up a nil, and that win, of course, took them to the top of Grupo Dos. Athletic B. First goal scored by Ike Luque. Does that surname mean anything to you, Nick?
The Luque I'm thinking of may not be the one that you're thinking. I'm thinking of former Depor, Newcastle, and Malaga man. Is it Alberto Luque? If I remember rightly.
You would be absolutely correct, Nick. This is how bloody old we are, Nick.
Don't say it. Don't say it.
Albert Luque's son, Ike, is now for a filial. It is indeed son of Albert. So yeah, excellent. I knew your Partido roots would stand you in good stead with that one. Yeah, he took his goal really well.
Playing for a team being managed by Fernando Torres as well, it just gets worse. Obviously, a great result for Athletic B. Europa have proved themselves to be no slouches this season, and as much as we don't like talking about filials, I think this is maybe one we're going to have to really acknowledge, because they do look quite formidable this season. Obviously, they've spent a fair bit of money to bring in players. They are a cantera for one of the top teams in the country, so it shouldn't be a surprise really, but they do really appear to be gunning for it this season, Liam, and want to be in the Spanish Segunda, possibly more than any other filial this season. Let's put it that way. So we'll keep an eye on those ones. In Grupo Uno, what are your 3 games to watch this weekend, Liam? Let's try and avoid any 0-0s.
Yeah, I've gone with Lugo Barakaldo Friday 7 p.m. I should say. Saturday 2 p.m. Pontevedra Zamora. But the biggest game probably in either group or so far this season is Saturday night, 6:30 p.m. Racing Ferrol versus Tenerife. Grupo Dos?
Perfect. In Grupo Dos, I'm going for 4 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. Torremolinos hosting Sabadell. Sabadell love scoring goals away from home. Torremolinos love scoring goals in general, so I expect that to finish 0-0. Teruel against Marbella. Can Teruel maintain their fantastic form this season, whilst the boys of Marbella visit at 12 o'clock on Sunday? And then, as we just talked about Athletic B, we need to keep an eye on them. I think this is a very tasty game here. This is an existential Primera RFEF colossus in the form of Nastic Tarragona taking on Athletic B, who are looking to extend their lead at the top of the table. 8:30 on Sunday. So plenty of football to pick from this weekend. We've also got some midweek football. We've got some Copa del Reinas. Obviously, plenty of sides in this division will play on Wednesday and Thursday, I think it is, isn't it? Against their selected side. So
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
I think so, yeah.
Plenty of football to watch there midweek. So do keep your eye on those fixtures. Anything Spanda Segundaness that we should be keeping an eye out for, Liam?
No, I think it's as close as ever at the top. I think there's some really decent games coming this weekend. I would not recommend Zaragoza against Deportivo La Coruña for obvious reasons as a Zaragoza fan. But miserable times for them. But yeah, there's a Racing have been impressive in recent weeks, and that's one to watch out for. How about Partido?
Well, it is obviously the last week of October, which means it's spooky season. So we've got a Halloween special for you, which includes the story of Barcelona Cafe. If you don't know if you remember that, Liam, when the Barcelona players sort of like burst into the media room wearing Halloween masks, and there's a bit of a fallout from that, which dominated the media for a couple of weeks afterwards. But we're also going to be doing our howlers, screamers, and nightmares in terms of goals, horror kits, and worst own goals as well, which is always quite fun. Not too many of them knocking around Spain, but we have found some. So yeah, keep an eye out on that on our El Partido channel. And I'll say thank you to you at home for listening to this episode of El Pozo. Do go give us a follow on social media to keep up to date with all the latest news from the Spanish third tier. I'll say thank you to you, Liam, for joining me once again. Enjoy the rest of the week, and we'll catch you very, very soon.
Cheers, Nick.
See you later. Hathaway, go goodbye.